Jonathan Reynolds sat in his penthouse office, the sprawling view of Manhattan's skyline laid out before him. As the CEO of Reynolds Enterprises, he had built an empire from the ground up, becoming one of the most influential businessmen in New York City. Yet, despite his immense success, doubts gnawed at him. Over the years, he had become increasingly suspicious of the true loyalty of his family. He wondered if they cared for him or if they were merely after his wealth. Jonathan's thoughts were interrupted by the buzz of the intercom. "Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Parker and Dr. Mitchell are here to see you," his secretary announced. "Send them in," Jonathan replied, straightening in his chair. He had been contemplating this meeting for weeks, and now it was time to set his plan into motion. Mr. Parker, his trusted lawyer, and Dr. Mitchell, his longtime friend and personal physician, entered the office. They exchanged greetings before Jonathan got straight to the point. "Thank you both for meeting with me on such short notice," Jonathan began. "I have a rather unconventional plan that I need your help with." Mr. Parker raised an eyebrow. "What do you have in mind, Jonathan?" Jonathan leaned forward, his expression serious. "I've been pondering the loyalty of my family. I need to know who truly cares for me and who is merely after my wealth. To do that, I plan to pretend to be in a coma." Dr. Mitchell's eyes widened. "That's quite a drastic measure. Are you sure about this, Jonathan?" "Absolutely," Jonathan replied. "I need to be certain about the future of my company and my legacy. If I were truly incapacitated, or even dead, I need to see how my family would handle the situation." Mr. Parker nodded slowly. "I understand your concerns. We'll need to set things up properly. I'll create a separate account and transfer half of your wealth into it, ensuring that you're financially secure no matter what happens." Dr. Mitchell sighed but nodded. "And I'll provide the necessary medical documentation to support your condition. We'll have to make it believable." With their help, Jonathan's plan was set into motion. Over the next few weeks, they meticulously planned every detail. Dr. Mitchell crafted a convincing diagnosis, while Mr. Parker handled the financial arrangements. One evening, as Jonathan was on his way home, he called his wife, Victoria. "Hello, dear. I'm not feeling well, and I can't drive. Could you come and pick me up?" Victoria's voice was filled with concern. "What happened? Are you all right?" "I don't know," Jonathan replied, his voice weak. "I just feel very weak. Please come quickly." Victoria hurriedly left the house and drove to where Jonathan was waiting. She found him slumped in the driver's seat, looking pale and disoriented. She helped him into the passenger seat and drove home. Upon reaching home, Jonathan's condition seemed to worsen. He claimed he couldn't see and felt extremely weak. The news of his sudden illness quickly spread among his children, Marcus, the 35-year-old elder son, Eliza, the 30-year-old daughter, and Rachel, the 27-year-old youngest daughter. The family doctor, Dr. Mitchell, arrived at the Reynolds residence to examine Jonathan thoroughly. After taking blood samples and conducting a series of tests, he returned a week later with a grave report. "Mr. Reynolds," Dr. Mitchell said solemnly, "the results indicate that you are suffering from liver cirrhosis and kidney disease. Additionally, there's a blood clot in your brain which has led to a stroke and affected your eyesight." The family was initially diligent in their care for Jonathan. They ensured he had the best medical treatment, a healthy diet, and a comfortable environment to recover. However, as weeks turned into months, the strain began to show. The novelty of the situation wore off, and their dedication waned. The reality of long-term care started to weigh heavily on them. Jonathan's condition demanded constant attention, and as time went on, his family grew weary. They began to neglect his needs, leaving most of the caregiving duties to the house staff. The once attentive family members became increasingly distant, absorbed in their own lives and concerns. Victoria, overwhelmed with the responsibilities of running the business and caring for Jonathan, convened a board meeting to discuss the situation. She informed the board members of Jonathan's deteriorating health and her decision to take over the company's operations, with Marcus as her right-hand man. Given my husband's condition, I will be stepping in to manage the company with Marcus assisting me. We need to ensure that the business continues to thrive during this challenging time, Victoria announced confidently. Despite their lack of experience, Victoria and Marcus assumed control of the company. They ignored the advice of seasoned executives and industry experts, believing they could manage on their own. This decision led to a series of missteps and poor decisions that began to erode the company's stability. As Jonathan lay in bed, seemingly unaware of the chaos around him, he listened intently to the conversations and actions of his family. The test had begun, and the true nature of their loyalty was about to be revealed. Eliza Reynolds sat by her father's bedside, her heart heavy with worry and exhaustion. She had taken an indefinite leave from her nursing job to care for her father, driven by her deep love and sense of duty. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions, with her father's sudden illness upending their lives. She gently dabbed a cool cloth on his forehead, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. In stark contrast to Eliza's dedication, Marcus and Victoria were increasingly absent from Jonathan's side. Marcus, now the acting CEO of Reynolds Enterprises, was consumed with the day-to-day operations of the company. He relished the newfound power and authority, making decisions with little regard for the advice of seasoned executives. His focus was on expansion and profit, often at the expense of the company's stability. Victoria, on the other hand, was more concerned with maintaining her social standing. She attended charity galas and high society luncheons, her public persona meticulously polished. At home, she delegated Jonathan's care to the house staff, spending only minimal time in his room. Her once genuine concern had faded, replaced by a sense of duty and appearance. The family mansion, once filled with laughter and warmth, now felt cold and empty. Eliza noticed the increasing neglect from Marcus and Victoria. Meals were often missed, and the house staff, though competent, could not provide the emotional support Jonathan needed. Eliza's frustration grew as she watched her brother and stepmother prioritize their own interests over their father's well-being. One evening, Eliza overheard a conversation between Marcus and Victoria in the study. She paused outside the door, straining to hear their hushed voices. "We need to make some cuts to the budget," Marcus said, his tone firm. "The company isn't performing as well as it used to." Victoria sighed. "I agree, but we can't let anyone know about Jonathan's condition. It would cause panic among the shareholders." Eliza's heart sank. They were more concerned about the company's image than their father's health. She clenched her fists, resolving to confront them. The next morning, Eliza found Marcus in the dining room, engrossed in his laptop. She took a deep breath and approached him. "Marcus, we need to talk," she said, her voice steady. Marcus looked up, his expression impatient. "What is it, Eliza?" "I'm busy." "It's about Dad," she began, struggling to keep her emotions in check. "He's not getting the care he needs. The staff is doing their best, but he needs us, he needs you." Marcus sighed, closing his laptop. "Eliza, I'm doing everything I can. The company is in a precarious position, and I have to focus on that. Besides, we have professionals looking after him." "Professionals can only do so much," Eliza retorted. "He needs his family. He needs to know that we care." Before Marcus could respond, Victoria entered the room, her expression one of annoyance. "What's all this commotion?" Eliza turned to her, her frustration bubbling over. "Mother, you haven't spent more than a few minutes with Dad in weeks. He's deteriorating, and neither of you seem to care." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Eliza, that's enough. We are doing what we can. Your father wouldn't want us to neglect our responsibilities." Eliza shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "He needs us more than ever. Please, just spend some time with him." Victoria pursed her lips but said nothing, turning away. Marcus sighed and returned to his laptop, effectively ending the conversation. Defeated, Eliza returned to Jonathan's room. She sat by his side, holding his hand. "Dad, I'm trying. I'm really trying," she whispered, her voice breaking. Please come back to us. As the days turned into weeks, Eliza's dedication never wavered. She continued to care for Jonathan, despite the growing distance between her and the rest of her family. The once close-knit Reynolds family was now fractured, each member isolated by their own choices and priorities. Eliza's suspicions grew as she noticed financial irregularities in the company records. She overheard more conversations between Marcus and Victoria, their discussions laced with a sense of urgency and secrecy. Determined to uncover the truth, Eliza enlisted the help of Mr. Parker, the family lawyer. Together, they began to investigate the mismanagement and neglect that threatened to destroy everything Jonathan had built. The more Eliza uncovered, the more her resolve strengthened. She knew she had to fight for her father's legacy, no matter the cost. The future of Reynolds Enterprises and her family depended on it. The tension within the Reynolds family continued to mount. Eliza's investigation into the company's finances revealed alarming discrepancies, and her suspicions about Marcus's and Victoria's priorities only deepened. She knew she needed to confront them with concrete evidence, but feared the repercussions. One evening, Eliza sat in her father's study, surrounded by stacks of financial documents and legal papers. The once orderly room was now a chaotic mess, mirroring the turmoil in her heart. She rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of her responsibility pressing down on her. As she pored over the documents, she heard the front door slam. Marcus had returned from yet another late night at the office. Eliza took a deep breath, gathering her courage, and went to confront him. "Marcus, we need to talk." "Now," Eliza demanded, blocking his path in the hallway. Marcus looked irritated but followed her into the study. "What is it, Eliza?" "I'm exhausted." Eliza pointed to the piles of documents. "I've been going through the company's financial records, and there are serious issues. You're making risky investments and ignoring the advice of our top executives. This can't continue." Marcus's face darkened. "You have no idea what you're talking about. The company needs bold moves to stay competitive. You're just a nurse. Leave the business to me." Eliza's frustration boiled over. "This isn't about my qualifications. This is about saving Dad's company and his legacy. You're jeopardizing everything he built." Before Marcus could respond, Victoria entered the room, her face a mask of calm composure. "What's going on here?" Eliza turned to her, her eyes blazing with determination. "Mother, Marcus is mismanaging the company, and you're more concerned about social events than Dad's health. We need to come together and fix this before it's too late." Victoria sighed, dismissing Eliza's concerns with a wave of her hand. "Eliza, you're being melodramatic. We're handling things as best we can." "Handling things?" Eliza's voice rose. "Dad is lying in bed, deteriorating, while you both play with his company like it's a toy. We need to prioritize his care and the business." Victoria's eyes flashed with anger. "You think you know better than us? Just because you're here all the time doesn't mean you understand the pressures we're under. I understand that Dad's company is on the brink of collapse because of your poor decisions," Eliza shot back. "And I understand that you're neglecting the very man who made all this possible." The argument was interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching. Mr. Parker entered, his expression grave. "I've been informed about the situation, and I believe Eliza is right. The company's financial health is in jeopardy." Marcus clenched his fists, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "Who brought you into this, Parker? This is a family matter." Mr. Parker remained unfazed. "It's my duty to protect Jonathan's interests, and right now, that means addressing these issues. We need to convene an emergency board meeting to discuss the future of Reynolds Enterprises." Victoria scoffed. "You have no authority to call a board meeting." "I do if it's in the best interest of the company," Mr. Parker replied firmly. "We can't afford to ignore these problems any longer." Eliza felt a surge of gratitude towards Mr. Parker. She knew this was the turning point they needed. Together, they could expose the mismanagement and take steps to save the company. As the board meeting was scheduled, tensions within the family reached a breaking point. Marcus and Victoria isolated themselves, discussing strategies to maintain their control, while Eliza and Mr. Parker prepared their case. The night before the meeting, Eliza sat by her father's bedside, her heart heavy with anxiety. She took his hand, hoping he could hear her. "Dad, I'm doing everything I can to protect your legacy. Please give me the strength to get through this." The following day, the boardroom was filled with a tense silence. Executives and board members exchanged worried glances as Eliza, Marcus, Victoria, and Mr. Parker took their seats. Eliza stood up, her hands shaking slightly. "Thank you all for coming. I've asked Mr. Parker to present our findings. The future of Reynolds Enterprises depends on what we decide today." Mr. Parker detailed the financial discrepancies and poor decisions, painting a bleak picture of the company's future if changes weren't made. Marcus and Victoria tried to defend their actions, but the evidence was overwhelming. As the board members deliberated, Eliza felt a glimmer of hope. This was her chance to make things right. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she was prepared to fight for her father's legacy and the future of the company. The board sided with Eliza and Mr. Parker, agreeing to implement a strategic recovery plan. Marcus was removed as acting CEO, and Eliza was appointed interim CEO until Jonathan's condition improved. As she left the boardroom, Eliza felt a mix of relief and determination. The battle was far from over, but she had taken the first step towards restoring her father's legacy. Now, she had to navigate the challenges ahead and prove that she was worthy of the responsibility entrusted to her. Eliza sat in her father's study, the weight of her new responsibilities pressing heavily on her shoulders. Being appointed as the interim CEO was both a triumph and a daunting challenge. She knew the road ahead would be fraught with difficulties, and she needed to prove herself not only to the board but also to herself. That evening, she received a call from Mr. Parker. "Eliza, I've gathered more documents that you need to review. We have to act quickly to stabilize the company." "Thank you, Mr. Parker," Eliza replied. "I'll come by the office first thing in the morning." After hanging up, she made her way to Jonathan's room. Sitting by his side, she gently held his hand. "Dad, I'm doing my best. I hope you're proud of me. I need your strength now more than ever." The next day, Eliza arrived at the Reynolds Enterprises headquarters early. The familiar sights and sounds of the bustling office now felt different. She was no longer just Jonathan's daughter, she was the leader responsible for the company's future. Mr. Parker greeted her in the lobby, a thick folder in hand. "Good morning, Eliza. These documents detail the financial status and recent decisions made by Marcus. We need to review them and identify the most critical issues to address." They spent hours poring over the files, identifying risky investments and unnecessary expenditures. Eliza felt a mix of anger and determination as she uncovered the extent of her brother's mismanagement. "We need to cut these projects and reallocate funds to more stable investments," Eliza said, pointing to a series of entries. "We also need to communicate with our key clients and reassure them about our direction." Mr. Parker nodded in agreement. "I'll draft a statement for the board and arrange meetings with our top clients." As the day progressed, Eliza received numerous calls and emails from concerned employees and partners. She addressed each one with patience and clarity, gradually building their confidence in her leadership. Meanwhile, Marcus and Victoria were fuming. They saw Eliza's new role as a threat to their control and began plotting ways to undermine her efforts. That evening, they confronted her at home. "Who do you think you are, Eliza?" Marcus spat, his face flushed with anger. "You think you can just waltz in and take over? You're not cut out for this." Eliza stood her ground, her eyes steady. "I'm doing what needs to be done to save Dad's company. Your reckless decisions nearly destroyed everything he built. It's time to fix your mistakes." Victoria stepped forward, her voice icy. "You're out of your depth, Eliza. Running a company is not the same as playing nurse. You'll fail, and when you do, we'll be there to pick up the pieces." Eliza felt a surge of defiance. I may not have your experience, but I have integrity and a genuine desire to see this company thrive. That's more than I can say for either of you. The confrontation left Eliza shaken but resolute. She knew she had to prove them wrong, not just for her own sake, but for Jonathan's legacy. She continued working late into the night, formulating plans and strategies. Over the next few weeks, Eliza implemented a series of changes aimed at stabilizing the company. She cut unnecessary projects, streamlined operations, and re-engaged with key clients. The results were promising, but the road ahead was still uncertain. One afternoon, as Eliza reviewed a report, she received an urgent call from one of the senior executives. Eliza, there's a major issue with one of our key clients. They're threatening to pull out of a crucial deal. Eliza's heart raced. I'll handle it. Set up a meeting as soon as possible. The following day, Eliza met with the client's representatives, presenting a clear and honest plan for moving forward. She addressed their concerns with confidence and transparency, gradually earning their trust. Thank you for your candor, Ms. Reynolds, one of the representatives said. We appreciate your approach and are willing to give this partnership another chance. Eliza breathed a sigh of relief. It was a small victory, but it reinforced her belief in her ability to lead. However, she knew that Marcus and Victoria were not done with their attempts to regain control. One evening, as Eliza returned home, she found Marcus and Victoria waiting for her in the living room. Their expressions were a mix of anger and desperation. Eliza, this has gone on long enough, Marcus said, his voice trembling. We're calling for an emergency board meeting to vote on your removal as interim CEO. Eliza felt a surge of panic but quickly composed herself. You can call for a meeting, but I'll fight this. I have the board's support and the evidence of your mismanagement. Victoria stepped forward, her eyes cold. We'll see about that. You may have won over some of the board, but we still have allies. The threat hung in the air as Eliza left the room. She knew the battle was far from over and that she had to prepare for the upcoming confrontation. In the days leading up to the meeting, Eliza worked tirelessly, gathering more evidence and securing the support of key board members. She knew this was her chance to solidify her position and protect her father's legacy. The day of the meeting arrived, and the boardroom was filled with tension. Marcus and Victoria presented their case, trying to undermine Eliza's efforts. But Eliza stood her ground, presenting a compelling argument for her leadership and the positive changes she had implemented. As the board deliberated, Eliza felt a mixture of anxiety and determination. This was her moment to prove herself, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Eliza stood in the boardroom, her heart pounding in her chest as the board members deliberated. She had presented her case with as much clarity and passion as she could muster, but the outcome was still uncertain. Marcus and Victoria's attempts to undermine her had been fierce, and she knew they had some allies among the board members. The room was filled with a tense silence as the board members exchanged glances and whispered among themselves. Finally, the chairman of the board, Mr. Andrews, cleared his throat and addressed the room. After careful consideration and review of the evidence presented, the board has reached a decision, he began, his voice steady and authoritative. We believe that Eliza Reynolds has demonstrated remarkable leadership and integrity during this challenging time. Her actions have stabilized the company and shown a clear path forward. Eliza held her breath, her hands clenched at her sides. Therefore, Mr. Andrews continued, we have decided to retain Eliza Reynolds as the interim CEO of Reynolds Enterprises. We believe she is the best person to lead this company through its current challenges and towards a prosperous future. A wave of relief washed over Eliza as the decision was announced. She glanced at Marcus and Victoria, whose faces were a mixture of shock and anger. Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is a mistake, he spat, his voice trembling with rage. She's not capable of running this company. You'll all regret this decision. Victoria, always the composed one, placed a hand on Marcus's arm. Calm down, Marcus. We'll find another way. Eliza watched as they stormed out of the boardroom, feeling a mix of triumph and apprehension. She had won this battle, but she knew that Marcus and Victoria would not give up easily. After the meeting, Mr. Parker approached Eliza, a proud smile on his face. "Congratulations, Eliza. You did it. The board believes in you, and so do I." "Thank you, Mr. Parker," Eliza replied, her voice filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without your support." As the weeks went by, Eliza threw herself into her work, determined to prove that the board's decision was the right one. She implemented the changes she had planned, cutting unnecessary expenses and focusing on the company's core strengths. She held regular meetings with the senior executives, encouraging open communication and collaboration. Under Eliza's leadership, Reynolds Enterprises began to show signs of recovery. The company's financials stabilized, and morale among the employees improved. Eliza's hands-on approach and genuine care for the company's well-being resonated with the staff, earning her their respect and loyalty. Despite the positive changes, Eliza remained vigilant. She knew that Marcus and Victoria were still plotting against her, and she needed to stay one step ahead. One evening, as she reviewed the latest financial reports in her office, her phone buzzed with a message from Mr. Parker. "We need to meet. Urgent." Eliza's heart skipped a beat as she read the message. She quickly gathered her things and headed to Mr. Parker's office. When she arrived, she found him pacing the room, a concerned look on his face. "What's going on?" Eliza asked, closing the door behind her. Mr. Parker handed her a stack of documents. "I've uncovered some troubling information. Marcus and Victoria have been secretly meeting with some of our major competitors. It looks like they're trying to orchestrate a hostile takeover." Eliza's eyes widened in shock. "A hostile takeover? How could they do this?" "They're desperate," Mr. Parker replied. "They know they can't regain control through legitimate means, so they're resorting to underhanded tactics. We need to act fast to protect the company." Eliza felt a surge of anger and determination. "We won't let them succeed. What do we need to do?" "We need to secure the support of our key stakeholders and ensure our shares are not vulnerable to a takeover," Mr. Parker explained. "I've already started reaching out to our major investors, but we need your leadership to rally everyone." Eliza nodded, her resolve strengthening. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect Dad's legacy and this company. Let's get to work." Over the next few days, Eliza and Mr. Parker worked tirelessly, meeting with investors and stakeholders to secure their support. Eliza's passion and dedication impressed everyone she spoke with, and slowly but surely, they began to rally behind her. As the threat of the hostile takeover loomed, Eliza remained focused and unwavering. She knew that this was the biggest challenge she had faced yet, but she was determined to see it through. The boardroom buzzed with a tense energy as the senior executives and key stakeholders gathered for the emergency meeting. Eliza stood at the head of the table, a determined look on her face. This was the moment of truth. She had to rally the support of everyone in the room to thwart Marcus and Victoria's hostile takeover attempt. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Eliza began, her voice steady and confident. "We're facing a significant threat to our company, orchestrated by none other than Marcus and Victoria Reynolds. They have been secretly meeting with our competitors, planning a hostile takeover. We cannot let this happen." Murmurs of concern and disbelief filled the room. Eliza took a deep breath and continued, outlining the evidence Mr. Parker had uncovered and the steps they needed to take to protect the company. She emphasized the importance of unity and loyalty, drawing on her father's legacy and the values he had instilled in the company. "Reynolds Enterprises has always been more than just a business," Eliza said passionately. "It's a family, built on trust, integrity, and hard work. My father dedicated his life to this company, and we owe it to him, and to ourselves, to protect it from those who seek to destroy it for their own gain." As Eliza spoke, she could see the resolve growing in the eyes of the stakeholders. She knew she had to close with a strong call to action. "We need to take immediate steps to secure our shares and prevent this takeover." I'm counting on each of you to stand with me and ensure that Reynolds Enterprises remains in the hands of those who truly care about its future." The room erupted in applause, and one by one, the stakeholders pledged their support. Eliza felt a surge of relief and gratitude. They had taken the first crucial step in protecting the company. As the meeting concluded, Mr. Parker approached Eliza, a proud smile on his face. "You were brilliant, Eliza. You've won them over." Eliza smiled, feeling a mix of pride and exhaustion. "Thank you, Mr. Parker. But this is just the beginning. We still have a lot of work to do." Over the next few days, Eliza and Mr. Parker worked around the clock to implement their plan. They secured the support of major investors, strengthened their financial defenses, and took steps to ensure that the company's shares were not vulnerable to a hostile takeover. Meanwhile, Marcus and Victoria were growing increasingly desperate. Their plans were unraveling, and they knew they were running out of time. In a last-ditch effort, they called for a private meeting with Eliza. Eliza agreed to meet them at the family mansion, knowing it would be a tense and confrontational encounter. As she walked into the grand living room, she saw Marcus and Victoria waiting for her, their faces grim. "This has gone far enough, Eliza," Marcus said, his voice low and menacing. "You need to step down and let us take control. You're out of your league." Eliza met his gaze steadily. "I'm not stepping down, Marcus. You've done enough damage already. It's time for you to face the consequences of your actions." Victoria stepped forward, her eyes cold. "You think you're so righteous, Eliza. But you don't know what it's like to be in our position. We were only trying to protect our interests. By destroying everything Dad built?" Eliza shot back. "By betraying the very values he stood for? You've only been thinking about yourselves." Marcus clenched his fists, his anger barely contained. "This isn't over, Eliza. We'll find a way to take you down." Eliza took a step closer, her voice firm and unwavering. "You've already lost, Marcus. The board is with me, the stakeholders are with me, and the company is with me. It's time for you to step aside and let us move forward." With that, Eliza turned and walked out of the mansion, feeling a sense of closure. She had faced her family's betrayal head-on and emerged stronger. Back at the office, the atmosphere was tense but hopeful. The company's employees rallied behind Eliza, inspired by her leadership and determination. She held regular meetings to keep everyone informed and involved, fostering a sense of unity and purpose. As the days passed, the threat of the hostile takeover began to recede. Eliza's proactive measures and the support of the stakeholders had secured the company's position. The final confrontation with Marcus and Victoria had only strengthened her resolve. One evening, as Eliza was working late in her office, she received a call from Mr. Parker. "Eliza, you need to come to the hospital. It's your father." Eliza's heart skipped a beat. She quickly gathered her things and rushed to the hospital. When she arrived, she found Dr. Mitchell waiting for her. "Dr. Mitchell, what's happening? Is my father okay?" Eliza asked, her voice trembling with worry. Dr. Mitchell gave her a reassuring smile. "He's awake, Eliza. He's asking for you." Eliza's eyes filled with tears of relief and joy. She followed Dr. Mitchell to her father's room, where she found Jonathan sitting up in bed, looking weak but alert. "Dad," Eliza whispered, rushing to his side. "You're awake. Thank God." Jonathan smiled, his eyes filled with pride and love. "Eliza, my dear. You've done an incredible job. I've been listening to everything. You've saved the company and protected our family's legacy." Eliza hugged her father tightly, her heart overflowing with emotion. "I did it for you, Dad. I wanted to make you proud." Jonathan gently stroked her hair. "You've made me prouder than I could ever imagine. You've shown true strength, integrity, and leadership. I couldn't have asked for a better daughter." As they sat together, Eliza felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. The journey had been long and difficult, but she had emerged stronger and more determined than ever. She knew there would be more challenges ahead, but with her father by her side and the support of the company, she was ready to face whatever came next. The days following Jonathan's awakening were a whirlwind of activity. Eliza ensured her father received the best medical care and gradually began to reintroduce him to the company's affairs. Jonathan, although still recovering, was eager to understand the full extent of what had transpired during his absence. Eliza sat with her father in his hospital room, going over the financial reports and updates she had meticulously prepared. "Dad, the company is on a solid path to recovery. We've managed to stabilize our finances, and the board is fully behind us." Jonathan nodded, his eyes reflecting a mix of pride and concern. "You've done an incredible job, Eliza. I couldn't have asked for a better interim leader. But what about Marcus and Victoria? Where do they stand now?" Eliza sighed, her expression turning serious. "They've been sidelined, but they're still part of the family. Marcus is struggling to accept his actions, and Victoria has been distant since the confrontation. We need to find a way to address their behavior while keeping the company's best interests in mind." Jonathan agreed. "They need to understand the consequences of their actions, but we can't completely turn our backs on them. Family is important, even when they've made mistakes." In the following weeks, Jonathan's health continued to improve, and he began to take a more active role in the company, albeit under Eliza's careful watch. The employees and board members welcomed him back warmly, reassured by his presence and the stability Eliza had brought. Eliza and Jonathan decided to hold a family meeting to address the issues with Marcus and Victoria. They invited them to the mansion, hoping for a constructive and healing conversation. As they gathered in the living room, the atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Marcus and Victoria sat opposite Eliza and Jonathan, their expressions a mix of defiance and remorse. Jonathan spoke first, his tone firm but compassionate. "Marcus, Victoria, we need to talk about what happened. Your actions nearly destroyed everything I built, and they hurt our family deeply." Marcus looked down, his anger replaced by shame. "I know, Dad. I was wrong. I let my ambition and greed cloud my judgment. I'm sorry." Victoria, usually so composed, had tears in her eyes. "I thought I was protecting our interests, but I realize now that I was only thinking of myself. I'm sorry too." Eliza's heart softened at their apologies. "We can't change the past, but we can learn from it. The company needs all of us to work together, but we must do so with integrity and respect for each other." Jonathan nodded in agreement. "We're a family, and we need to support each other. Marcus, I want you to work with Eliza and learn from her. She has shown exceptional leadership, and you can benefit from her example. Victoria, I hope you can find a way to contribute positively to the company and our family." The conversation was a turning point for the Reynolds family. It wasn't an instant fix, but it was a start. Marcus began to work closely with Eliza, gradually earning back the trust of the board and employees. Victoria focused on charity work and supporting the company's corporate social responsibility initiatives. Under Eliza's continued leadership, Reynolds Enterprises flourished. She implemented innovative strategies and fostered a culture of transparency and collaboration. The company not only recovered but began to thrive, reflecting the values and vision Jonathan had always championed. One evening, as Eliza and Jonathan sat in the mansion's garden, enjoying a rare moment of calm, Jonathan turned to his daughter. "Eliza, you've exceeded every expectation. You've proven that you're not just capable but extraordinary." Eliza smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "Thank you, Dad. I couldn't have done it without your support and guidance. I'm just glad I could help protect what you built." Jonathan's eyes were filled with pride. "You've done more than protect it. You've made it better. And I know that with you at the helm, the future of Reynolds Enterprises is bright." As the stars twinkled overhead, Eliza felt a profound sense of peace. The challenges they had faced had strengthened their family and solidified her role as a leader. She knew there would be more obstacles ahead, but with her father's wisdom and her own unwavering determination, she was ready to face them. Together, they looked towards the future, confident that the legacy of Reynolds Enterprises was in safe hands, built on a foundation of love, integrity, and resilience. The transition into a new era for Reynolds Enterprises was both exhilarating and challenging. Eliza embraced her role with confidence, drawing strength from the journey she had undertaken. The support of her father and the lessons she had learned along the way fortified her resolve to lead the company with integrity and innovation. Under Eliza's leadership, the company embarked on several ambitious projects. She spearheaded initiatives to modernize operations, integrate sustainable practices, and foster a more inclusive corporate culture. Her hands-on approach and open-door policy earned her the respect and admiration of employees at all levels. One of the first major projects Eliza championed was the development of a cutting-edge research and development center. She believed that innovation was key to the company's long-term success and worked tirelessly to secure funding and talent for the new venture. The R&D Center quickly became a hub of creativity and technological advancement, positioning Reynolds Enterprises as a leader in the industry. In addition to her corporate responsibilities, Eliza also prioritized family unity. She encouraged open communication and sought to rebuild the fractured relationships with Marcus and Victoria. Regular family dinners became a new tradition, where they discussed not only business matters but also shared personal experiences and supported each other's growth. Marcus, under Eliza's mentorship, began to show significant improvement. He took on a new role focusing on business development, leveraging his skills and ambition in a positive direction. With Eliza's guidance, he learned the importance of ethical leadership and the value of collaboration. Victoria, too, found a renewed sense of purpose. Her involvement in corporate social responsibility initiatives allowed her to contribute meaningfully to the company and the community. She organized charity events, partnered with local organizations, and championed causes close to her heart. Through her efforts, Reynolds Enterprises became known not only for its business acumen but also for its commitment to social impact. Despite the positive strides, Eliza remained vigilant. She knew that leadership required continuous learning and adaptation. She attended industry conferences, engaged with thought leaders, and stayed abreast of the latest trends and technologies. Her dedication to personal and professional growth set a powerful example for the entire company. One evening, as Eliza walked through the halls of the new R&D Center, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The center was buzzing with activity, filled with bright minds working on groundbreaking projects. It was a testament to the resilience and vision that had guided her through the toughest times. Eliza's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps behind her. She turned to see Jonathan, his eyes shining with pride. "Dad, I didn't expect to see you here," Eliza said, smiling warmly. "I couldn't resist," Jonathan replied, looking around the bustling center. "I wanted to see the fruits of your hard work." Eliza gestured towards the busy labs and workstations. "This is just the beginning. There's so much more we can achieve." Jonathan nodded. "I have no doubt. You've taken this company to new heights, Eliza. Your leadership has transformed Reynolds Enterprises into a beacon of innovation and integrity." As they walked through the center, Jonathan placed a hand on Eliza's shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Eliza. You've honored our family's legacy and built a future we can all be proud of." Eliza felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey had been arduous, but it had led to this moment, a new era for Reynolds Enterprises, marked by unity, progress, and a renewed commitment to excellence. Looking out over the bustling activity of the R&D Center, Eliza knew that the future was bright. With her father's support and the strength of the team she had built, there was no challenge they couldn't overcome. Together, they would continue to innovate, inspire, and lead, carrying the Reynolds legacy forward into the future.